I'm an assistant professor in the Social Work and Criminal Justice Department. There's my contact information. Please don't email me. I don't respond to emails very well lately. And my research focus is on restorative justice, which is a particular philosophical approach to criminal justice, and then how it relates to the design and architecture of justice spaces and psychosocial, behavioral, and judicial outcomes as part of all that. And you'll see how this study relates into that bigger picture. Okay. So about 600,000 men and women work in our nation's correctional institutions, and they do a lot of different kind of work. Some are more focused on security, some are more focused on rehabilitative and therapeutic programs, some are just doing what we need done in a community, food service, medical, janitorial. And many of them are in this work because they're really satisfied. They get a lot out of it. But there's a lot of stressors that come with the work as well. There's role ambiguity and conflict. 70% of correctional officers have been exposed to violence, and they experience more work-related, non-fatal, intentional injuries than any other profession, including law enforcement, and about 80% experience trauma symptomology. And they also experience organizational and operational stressors too. They're in a position where there's a lot of role ambiguity, a lot of role conflict. They have little support, mandatory overtime, highly conflictive interpersonal relationships with colleagues as well as incarcerated individuals, and little efficacy and decision-making authority. The result is emotional exhaustion, burnout, and high staff turnover. And all of this comes together in what people are calling corrections fatigue. And it is negative personality changes, dysfunctional thinking, and declined health and well-being that comes from working in the correctional environment, which also leads to low job satisfaction and high absenteeism. And so this actually has an impact on achieving correctional goals, because if your staff are not healthy, if they're not interested in being on the job, it's going to impact their ability to deliver the services that they're supposed to be delivering for people who we want to have rehabilitated and want to have them come back to the community. So it's really important to understand, how do we minimize this fatigue and increase their organizational commitment. And the physical and natural environment of the correctional facility may be one of those factors that can make things worse or make things better. Correctional environments are typically very harsh and sterile, and something as simple as a cluttered housing unit can actually increase stress and lead to a decline in mental health. So we need to be thinking about these things, and we know that the environment matters. So we know when people have access to nature, they're just healthier and better, and certainly some preliminary research in the correctional environment indicates that a simple mural is going to help people feel better. So this study is bringing this all together, of corrections fatigue, organizational commitment, and the environment. And it's a collaborative project between myself and Dr. Lindsay McCunn, who some of you may remember from when she was here at UW-T. We started applying for this when she was not having any intention of leaving. So what we're going to be looking at in this study is, to what extent do correctional staff experience corrections fatigue, and how does it manifest itself? To what extent do correctional staff experience organizational commitment and perform organizational citizenship behaviors, basically pro-social behaviors on the job? How do correctional staff perceive and use the physical and natural environment in order to mitigate fatigue, but also support work-related behaviors? And then how does corrections fatigue, organizational commitment, these pro-social behaviors, and experience of the environment interrelate? So the research is going to be done at Washington Correctional Center for Women, or WCCW, which is a multi-custodial institution in Gig Harbor. And in many ways, it's your traditional campus with lots of cement, lots of brick buildings, small patches of lawn. But it also has a lot of gardens, intentionally landscape space, and sustainability and environmental programs. So we're going to really be able to particularly tap into how people use the natural environment. To measure corrections fatigue, we'll be using the Corrections Fatigue Assessment Scale, which is developed by Desert Waters Correctional Outreach, and we'll be using select parts of this 150-item scale that get at what we're most interested in. And facility quality is actually one of the categories that they rate on this scale. Then for our work-related scales, we'll be looking at organizational commitment scale and the effective commitment subscale in that. For organizational citizenship behavior, those pro-social behaviors, we'll be using a composite scale that comes out of that that's specifically designed for prisons. And then also the workplace environmental adversity scale, focusing on the items that relate to the inability to achieve workplace respite. We're also going to be doing interviews with staff, and these interviews are just going to be to understand that experience with the environment more deeply, and we will do a mixture of interviews in private interview rooms, but also walking interviews where we join the respondent and walk around the institution to be able to actually see and experience what they're talking about. And then we'll also do photographing and some administrative data. So the award that we got through the Alternative RRF, or ARF, as I discovered, it was the acronym. We'll be hiring student research assistants, also be able to transcribe our interviews, and then we have to purchase the corrections fatigue scale. So we really think the contributions, there's three main ones that we think are important coming out of this, is that we are going to advance the knowledge about particularly environment and staff outcomes. They've done more with actually incarcerated people. But also we're going to be getting WCCW some baseline data about the health of their employees and be able to provide recommendations about how they can improve for their employees. So we do think this study is really important for UW-T. It does connect with the urban serving mission because we are really trying to think about this current problem of incarceration, but through the lens of staff mental health, and also wanting to collaborate with community partners in this effort. It's also publicly engaged scholarship in that we're really trying to take these theories that Dr. McCunn and I are involved in every day and apply them in this really critical public institution of this time, and also to get students thinking about this by having them involved as research assistants. And also, we're really trying to make some transformation. We are hoping that what we learn in the course of this study will lead to changes at the institution to support correctional staff. And certainly we're not able to do that unless we're in partnership with WCCW and Department of Correction administrators. Felice Davis there, the one handing out certificates, is our key liaison over there, and just starting to talk about this study has actually started to build relationships with her coming into the classroom, and then also sitting on the Social Work and Criminal Justice Advisory Committee. So, thank you.